So, yeah, it was all about butterflies. Very cool. It was a great talk.
Good morning, Althea. Beautiful day, a little odd weather, but as someone informed me, this is summer in Denver, so I'm good with that. How are you all today? Doing well? Well, welcome to Althea. Just remind everyone to take a minute and make your cell phone be on quiet for the rest of the service. I don't see our Sergeant at Arms yet, but if your cell phone goes off, someone might come down and grab it and hold it for ransom. So, fair warning. We have a tradition that we started not too long ago about doing what is called a land acknowledgement. And this was something that was fairly new to me. And at first I really didn't understand it, but after doing some research and reading, I thought, well, this makes sense. So we want to acknowledge the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, and the Utes. This is their indigenous land, and before them there were probably other indigenous people here whose names we don't know, so we acknowledge them also. It's important for us to name it for those people because their lives do matter, and we are on land that originally belonged to them. Their legacy matters, who they were, who they are now, and who they continue to be. So we can just take a moment to breathe in this land acknowledgement and just kind of be open to feeling what was here before this building was built 100 years ago. This place is sacred. because we say so. We can make any place sacred that we are, and we so name. But it's also even more sacred because of the land that it is. We're also proud at Althea to be the home to an organization called Spirit of the Sun, whose work in this community through activism, programming, and education is making a difference for Indigenous communities, one youth at a time. So that is how we acknowledge this land every week. So I'd like to welcome any newcomers. Is there anyone who is here for the first time? We'd like you to stand up and come up to the front and give a 20-minute talk about who you are and why you decided to come today. Or you could just raise your hand and we'll give you a flower. Two of you are welcome. Thank you. And just to let you know that we do have a lunch after the service, and we would love it if you would come and get to know us at lunch and sit down at one of the tables. And if you still have your flowers with you, the lunch is free for you today. So take advantage of it and stop by. We really enjoy the community after the service at lunch, where we can really get to know people. So our opening prayer. Is Catherine here?
She's behind you.
Right behind you.
Good morning, everyone. Let's close our eyes and take a few deep breaths and breathe in the divine light that's in this beautiful sanctuary. So, I can't, well, first of all, God, it's usually just you and me, so if I sound stilted, forgive me. But I can't comprehend really what you are, God. But I can feel you. And personally, I feel you as a little golden light that comes to my forehead and goes down to my heart and grows and pulsates through my body. I feel you really easily when I'm out in nature, if I'm under a starry sky, looking at the moon, sitting by a stream, an ocean, a lake. I feel you. I feel you when I see the creatures that roam this earth, even my tiny little dog Moses that looks at me with his love and demands. I feel you when I come to Althea. I feel you in the vibration of the words that people speak. I feel you in the music that's played so often. I feel you just afterward when we're in community at lunch and just hanging out, laughing and talking and doing our thing. But here's my prayer. My prayer, since you are omnipresent, my prayer is to feel you all day, every second of every minute of every hour. Because you are the truth, and the truth is love, and if we could feel that all the time, certainly this would impact our world with peace. I know it's a tall order, but that's my prayer today. Thank you so much. Amen. And so it is.
Thank you. Beautiful words. And so now we're going to have our statement of being. This comes from a tradition of this building when it first started. And so we carry forward this tradition. And is Anna, I think, there she is. Anna is going to lead us in the statement of being. and also in singing our short song, "In the Face of God." And if you would like to stand, that would be great. And if you would like to stay seated, that is fine also.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Please forgive me, I've been running all morning and I'm out of breath. So bear with me, but thank you for being here with me. Okay. God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This oneness is all, this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. We are individualized expressions of God, and are everyone like us. Perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. You are the face of God. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. You are family. You are the face of God. Thank you. Thank you so much for everything. I'm sorry for doing this. You know, I want to say real quick is I want to thank you all, no matter how lost I am in life, but it happens more often than I'd like. I come here every Sunday and I don't feel lost anymore the time that I'm here. So thank you. My heart's with you. And when I sing this, even if I mess up, I sing with my heart completely to you. Thank you.
And Anna is also our magic plant lady. She takes care of all the plants in the building, and they love her, and she loves them. So thank you. And just something that occurred to me: if we could just walk around for 1 hour and see the face of God in everyone, just 1 hour, not the whole day, just 1 hour. Maybe for some of us, just a minute. But that does it. That opens us up and it helps open the other person up also. So that's a powerful song that we sing every Sunday. And we have a favorite musician here today, Michael Stanwood. He's the 5-time winner of Westworld's Best of Denver for everything from his recordings, his performances. He's composed scores for dance theaters and film and recordings. He's produced multimedia events for the zoo and the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And he plays a variety of ethnic instruments. I'm not going to name them because you never know what Michael is going to play. And I absolutely love hearing him and seeing what he brings to us every time he's here. So welcome, Michael.
Sorry it takes so long to set up. This is an auto part, and we'll set it if you do later.
time I heard him play the auto harp, I had never heard the auto harp used for anything other than accompanying folk music. And I just thought that's what it did. This was a background to someone singing a folk song. And when Michael plays it, it's a solo instrument. And I just find his virtuosity on that thing amazing. I keep watching his fingers and saying, how does he do that? So, thank you, Michael. Amazing. Really amazing. So today we get to move from one amazing to another amazing. Our guest speaker today is Kyanna Johnson. This is her first time here at Althea. The board had the pleasure of working with her a few months ago and really liked her, and we thought, let's have her here to speak. She's been working with refugee youth and families as a teacher and program coordinator since 2005. In 2016, she began working with the Division of Child Welfare in a role that links Colorado Refugee Services programs to the Division of Child Welfare in coordination of the Unaccompanied Refugee Minor Program. And we've all heard a lot about that in the news in the last few years. She has an MA in conflict resolution. She speaks Arabic, which probably not many of us do, and I'm hoping that her talk today will be mostly in English. And she teaches the Enneagram. So she is a woman with many talents. She is a dynamic person, and I am really looking forward to hearing her talk today. Welcome, Cayenna.
I used to live downtown, and I knew there was a spiritual place for me down here. I never ended up at Althea, but now I'm here. Timing is everything, as they say. I'm an accompanied refugee minor program coordinator. Whenever people hear that, they're like, you must be nice. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. About 10 years ago, in the summer, it was July, it was hot. I was working as a family stabilization specialist. Can you hear me? Yeah. So that was like a crisis case manager at the African Community Center. And I was making the same amount of money as I made 10 years before. I came back to refugee resettlement after a short sojourn, and I ended up doing basically victim advocacy, crisis case management. It was very aligned with where I was in my life, which was I was in the middle of a lot of chaos and learning about my shadow. So on that afternoon, a family came in. I'd heard about them. It was a DV case, and it was a dad and kids who came in. And there's 5 kids in the family, 5 girls. Only the 3 oldest were with the dad. And we had called child welfare on the family earlier in the week after we'd heard details about the abuse. And the mom had fled. So often what happens in child abuse cases is the parents flee when there's an investigation. And mom had fled. She'd take the 2 youngest daughters. Those were the least abused. And the older daughters, aged 8, 10, and 12, wanted me, my help. And me and this little whippersnapper of an intern, who was about 10 years younger than me, she was like 22, I was like 34 at the time. We were like, okay, we're gonna do it. About 3 p.m., so the day's almost over. Hot. They don't have a car. So I started asking the girls, Dad doesn't speak English. I started asking the girls, like, where do you think your mom is? And then they just started describing to me that, have you been there? They started telling me the neighborhood, and I know the neighborhood. I knew where they were. So I piled the girls and the dad. Me and the intern, we piled in a 12-seater van, belongs to the agency, big, huge white van. And it's like, doesn't have great shocks, so it's like, argh. So we're driving around the neighborhood, and I got the girls, and the girls are just freaking amazing, brave, amazing. The 8-year-old in particular was just so spirited and amazing. So she's like, okay, no, turn this way, turn that way. We get to the house. I'm like, okay, that's the house, all right. We pull over and park at a nearby park. And the intern and I show up, and we have like these like pamphlets from actually the center. The center had done a presentation to our organization. We're trying to increase the awareness of LGBT community members to the African Community Center. We're trying to do systemic change. We have these pamphlets. So we show up with the pamphlets and pretend that we're just, I don't know, giving pamphlets out like in the neighborhood to white women. And we, verify that the 2 daughters are in the house. We take off. It's like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Call the police. Police help us pick up. Police escort the dad and pick up the 2 girls because there's no custody agreement. You can pick them up. We get in the van again. We start driving. It's nighttime. We end up in Thornton. We drop the whole family off at a friend's house, Thornton. And I get home probably 10 p.m. Where my kids are this whole time, they're with their dad, and maybe my mother-in-law is living there for the time. Now, do you feel how elevated just me talking about this is? You can feel it, right? Okay, now, refugee resettlement, I'm a good person, whatever. And what happens when I get elevated, we all do, that's when our shadow side shows up. That's when the qualities of my culture that are maybe not the best show up. And actually, I'm going to advance and talk about those. So, this is what shows up. And I work with this, I don't talk about the families that I work with. A, it's re-traumatizing for me. B, these aren't my stories. But do you know the stories? I only tell them to my therapist because some of the things I've seen are just, it's just what you would think. It's like worse than that. There's a lot of hard stuff. Anyhow, so I'm with this family, and we have a relationship for about 2 years where I tried to help basically get the dad to have custody of the kids. And they don't live in Colorado anymore. They couldn't afford to live here because dad doesn't speak English, and you really can't afford to live in this community without, it's pretty tough with 5 kids. You have to have housing, basically, or a lot of other external supports. So many qualities of white supremacy culture in myself showed up during this process. Now, I'm not ashamed of myself or my culture, but in order for me to work with people, I need to know what my culture is and the shadow side. I need to understand this, and that this is not universal. For example, individualism, or I'm the only one. At one point, I was with a family, and we'd gotten them housing for 2 years, housing voucher. And I mean, the conniving and the scheming that I had to do to get that happen. I mean, I was having nightmares about this. I was thinking about the family all the time. My kids would end up with me at night, driving around in that big white bonnet van, taking this family different places, trying to keep them safe. Crazy town. Anyway, so at one point we got them housing, and I got them furniture. I was like, this is great. So the couch I got was too big for the door. Couldn't fit in. It was a used couch. So I'm like outside with like a pulley trying to get the couch up through the balcony. And at some point, this is like hours I'm working to get the couch, this damn couch into the house. And finally I was like, I am not letting the flow of the universe work through me right now. Like I am just like, I'm just making it all about me. I gave up. And I'm like, okay, it's gonna work out. Guess what? Next time I showed up at the house, they had a beautiful new couch, but they figured out how to get on their own. So, okay. So there's a lot more to this story, but I'm gonna pause here and talk. So what is my culture? Oh, and how much time do I have?
20 years.
How much time left? Yeah.
So probably a good 10 on. We're at 10 Q&A, somewhere.
Okay, so that's where I'm going to talk about who I am. So I'm a pretty much a typical, I call myself pretty typical Colorado white lady. I have kids, have a big 95-pound dog. I'm married, I live in Aurora, live in a suburb type house in Aurora. I'm from Utah. I like to hike and camp. My favorite thing is to be outside. Like that's the ultimate thing. There's some unusual things about me too. Like my career choice has been kind of interesting. I'm married to a North African. My mother-in-law lives with me part of the year, and she only speaks Arabic in the house. Also, I'm very, very spiritual woo-woo, like extra, and it's a huge relief to be in a space where I can just like be out about that, because normally I kind of like keep it on the down low because people just think I'm too crazy. So, typical white lady, and I claim that, and it's not like that's the best thing, but it is what it is. And so cultural humility is knowing who I am and what I bring, and softening, especially this piece right here. Just knowing, and I have, by the way, I have this as a printout, and it's going to be available in a deep dive, and I would recommend for folks who are doing any kind of work on anti-racism, this is a great start, because you'll read it and there's a lot to unpack and learn. And this is an amazing tool to have. It's just a print, little document that goes through it. So in my experience with refugee resettlement, which is significant, what I found is that the big challenges with culture is, well, it's around the like two puzzle pieces that like don't fit, And in the beginning, things are great, things feel good, and then after the relationships persist, and folks in the relationship don't know what they bring, they don't know their shadow, they haven't explored it, the relationship breaks down. Example one. Older white lady is a volunteer. She works with a Liberian family. She comes to me and she's like, this family's so angry with me, I don't know why. I'm like, okay, tell me why. Tell me what happened. So she was so nice, she replaced all the furniture in this family's house with like brand new furniture as a surprise. And this Liberian family was pissed. And she didn't understand why. And I was like, okay. I'm like, how do you explain like the violation to take someone's belongings, even if they don't seem nice? And I know probably most of us get that, but it's just that it's understanding that good intention does not equal it's not necessarily appreciated or welcomed or even appropriate. Another example, less kind of severe. It's a major minor case. This is children who is under the care of their sibling who's also a minor, who's 20. So I think it was 4 or 5 brothers. Oldest brother is 20. They come as a case. They have no parents. These cases are very difficult. They need a lot of support. So there's a volunteer, all Sarah lady. She's probably my age now, like 40s, probably 30, 40s. So she's with that family, helping with the kids, okay? Helping them clean the house, keep going once a week. And I know she got burnt out. And she's thinking that these kids are going to really have a lot of gratitude, and then they're going to figure out that they have to clean their own house. But I know that the kids are like, hey, this is so great. Isn't American culture so nice? These welcoming ladies coming and helping me clean my house. And eventually that woman broke up with them. She couldn't work with that family because she just could not keep up that pace. And again, it's like, how horrible that there was a breakup, because those kids definitely would have bonded with her. They just didn't understand, it's just like, mismatch. And again, that's where cultural humility comes in, understanding that in communication there's a thing. Anyway, so when it comes to cultural humility, I do recommend that y'all get training. And I actually have, let's see what's here. Yeah, this is what I recommend. This is a woman, actually used to work with the African Community Center with me. She started an organization that they create cohorts of supportive groups where they learn about anti-oppression. And it's very compassionate and it's very gentle but very straightforward, very clear. And it's really just helping, it's a way of having a conversation like a group to read and learn about white supremacy and anti-oppression and anti-racism. And the reason why we need training and accountability is that it's such shadow stuff for white people in the United States. This is so hard it's so hard to investigate this, or it can feel so hard. And it's so critical that we do in order to be welcoming, in order to acknowledge, like, for instance, that we're on indigenous land that was stolen, or for instance, that Black Americans, you know, labor was stolen for 400 years and more. You know, just all of that acknowledgement. That's the expectations that especially young people have of us. That's where we are at. Youth getting trained in a shared language, you know, support, accountability. But the second piece is not just about relationships. The second piece is, so Brenda, the founder here, she said, why do you want to learn about anti-racism? And I'm like, because I don't want to hurt people. She's like, that is not enough. You have to know about structures. You have to know that racism is not just between individuals, it's a structural thing. Now, what is the measure of anti-racism? How do you know that your community is welcoming? You would see it. That is the measure. This group would be mixed. That's the measure. That is the measure. And it's not an easy thing. And again, I would recommend softening and compassion, but also some accountability and training. So back to, I don't know, I think there's a couple minutes left. So back to that family, let me see if I have anything else to say.
What's the name of this organization?
Invisible Paradigms. It's this Invisible Paradigms. Great, it's great. Like, highly recommended. So back to this family. There were a lot of ups and downs. At one point, I was, the attorney quit, and I was in the office like sobbing because I just could not, it just was like another roadblock. The family was homeless several times. They were absolutely worth it. They're awesome. They moved, as I said, they moved, and the thing is, people want a happy ending with refugee resettlement, and I did too. Again, that's back here. Right to comfort. You know, I want to know that I did something good and there's a happy ending. But people's stories will, you know, have dignity no matter what the experience is. And so I'm very careful about telling those stories again, because those stories have dignity, even though for other audiences they just might feel horrific. But that is a life that someone's living, and it is sacred. And it's, you know, because I do trust my higher power, I know there's a reason for it. I don't know what the reason is, but I trust that that person has the same higher power, has a higher power just like I do. Anyway, to kind of put an end to that, because I want to give you guys the end of that story. There were really tough things. Even though there was domestic violence and very horrific child abuse. Courts don't acknowledge that. Dad was protective, he removed the kids, and so the court, you know, a family court for divorce doesn't acknowledge that. Mom revealed in court with her daughters present that the oldest daughter was a biological daughter of the dad. You know, the court forced the kids to have visitation with their mom, even though it was the kids who were behind the divorce. You know, Dad would never have left. Dad was severely abused. He had very, you know, he would never have left her without the kids. And I mean, just hardship. In the end, I got this intern who was a woman who'd been in the military, older black woman who was a paid intern with the COVA, Colorado Office of Victim Assistance. And as I left the organization, she kind of took over the case. The case was actually not eligible for funding anymore because of the duration of it. They had been in the United States longer than 5 years. So she took it over, and the end was that a judge was signed to the case, like not a magistrate, an actual judge, and he was committed to just seeing it through because it was just like up and down, up and down. And in the end, Mom was awarded custody, partial custody, and then as she's walking out the door, she threatened Dad and told him she was going to kill him in her language. And that intern, she goes to the interpreter and says, "What did she just say?" Because the whole family was like, and the interpreter said, "She just threatened to kill." They opened up the case, terminated her custody, And it was it was a massive victory for safety. So it didn't like have a happy ending for that moment. But these kids are, they're all still alive, they're all living. I don't know what the kids think about me in the end, because they did lose their mom, that was really hard too. So I wouldn't say that it's like a rainbow story exactly, but there was a sort of a completion at one point. So I will just say in closing that for any kind of cultural humility, anti-racism work, this is not about the new edge. It's joy activism. How can we love our lives in the middle of it? How can we love what we're doing? How can we love each other? This is the real layer of the cutting edge of just this work. And in Black Lives Matter community, this is what folks are talking about that I understand. And so I just encourage you to, as you move about your lives and interact with folks that have a different background, cultural, racial, ethnic, whatever, that, a softening, compassion, but really try to understand yourself in that context. And also understand how beautiful people are and that their lives are joyful and in the midst of all that hard stuff. So thank you, that's it. And I will take questions if you have any. Hopefully I didn't just like go, but.
We have a mic.
Is the folks online can't hear the mic? No worries.
Someone to the rescue.
Okay. Thank you, Kyanna, for sharing that. What gives you the most hope that you see happening in our specific culture, in, I'll say, the United States right now, toward the goals that you're talking about?
Okay, so before I say that, I gotta just say something. So you guys are aware of the Afghan humanitarian evacuees and then now Ukrainian refugee crisis. There's a difference in the way people respond to Black refugees versus brown refugees, even if they're Muslim, versus white refugees. And I'm sure you know. So I don't feel cynical, but it doesn't surprise me. So bottom line is with Ukrainian refugees, people are just like, it's just so much response. And with the Syrians and the Afghans, also a lot of response, less than Ukrainians. And then with, for example, when we talk about folks from Congo, you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. People in the news are like, oh, well, we just expect that Africans are live in this particular way versus Ukrainians. But in regards to hope, I think that young people, I know young people get a lot of flack, I'm talking Gen Z, they get a lot of flack for being so extra, but they are quite amazing. And they are they are doing things very differently. I'm Gen X, I'm 44. They are more aware and softer, more compassionate, less corporate-led than anybody else. And so it's the young people that they're giving me a great deal of hope. Moreover, in the pandemic, I think we're in a time of just global awakening, and what we saw with Black Lives, for me, my experience is Black Lives Matter has changed the conversation. And I work in the state government now. There's so much work on equity, diversity, policy change right now. Because if you remember, it's not just about changing ourselves, it's like structures. And I would say, since we're in a spiritual space, it's also a spiritual change. It is a humility. It is a humility to understand how, it doesn't mean we hate ourselves. It just means looking more deeply at what we bring and what we were born into and our karma and our destiny and what is all of this, and then using that for good. That's my perspective. So I am very hopeful. And the work is hard. Like I'm not, it's not like it's just rainbows and butterflies. It's not. And I have been in the middle of some of the, okay, hold on, I'm gonna say the last thing. That was a long chat for that. But last thing is that like people are awesome. That's what's helpful. Like people are freaking awesome. All these people that I've worked with, no matter what they've been through, they're just amazing. They know what they need. And I'm just so glad that they're here and they're able to like live more. Oh, I'll just say something. So it's not what I mean. It's not like, oh, rainbow. So when people of color come to this community, they don't just live in, downtown Denver in like a loft. They're living in dangerous neighborhoods very often. This woman just was killed last week, and she's a community leader. She was killed accidentally by a stray bullet. She lives at Hindenburg Apartments, which is just on like 13th and Xenia. And this is like leaving violence, coming into violence. That's the structural racism part. So the hopeful part is we know we're aware of it. We're talking about it openly, and I believe that people themselves have the resilience. They have the strength and resilience that they when empowered, they figure out what they need. Any other questions? Go ahead, ma'am. I'll repeat your question.
Okay, no problem. Good morning. I was wondering, how do you soften someone's heart to open up their mind to this perspective?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it is so imperative for people to do the work, to get to this moment so we can coalesce as humans.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's my question.
So the question was how to soften your heart, because this work is so important, so that we can coalesce together as humans. This thing here means that so fear of open conflict, right? Here's what happens, is that let's just assume all of us, we have pretty open hearts, right? But we have like an aunt or uncle or some relative who's a real pain in the ass and is like, just full of it. So what do? Or what do you do about your colleague who's just, or there's a person of color in your workplace and, what do? It's tough. Okay, fear of open conflict, you gotta get rid of that. You gotta have a conversation. But then there's other things that come in, like perfectionism and individualism. There's one right way. I really, really disagree that we need to fight about it. I say have a relationship with that person that is racist. Do not end the relationship. Keep the door open. Find what you guys have in common. Have a conversation, and then when it comes up, that is the soft spot. Now, for people who are open to begin with, I believe that we will have a moment of humiliation where we've just really made a mistake, and all of a sudden realize I just showed up as, my white supremacy culture just took over. And so it's a matter of apologizing and continuing to soften. Because it's not just, there's a mistake that we make, I have made, people I think on the left make, is that I'm a Democrat, I'm not racist. Not true, guys, sorry, it's not true. Because this is so insidious that folks of color, people of color, very likely do not feel comfortable around us or safe. And so the softening would be like, where is the people of color around you? Why, or maybe there's some, you messed up, you made a mistake. And the good thing is that people are amazing. And so probably your friend or your colleague or whoever, that person of color in your life will forgive you, you apologize, and be accountable. And you can open that back up. But it's not just about the relationships, although that's critical, it's about institutions. So that's the other thing we all continue to work on. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry. Yes, sir. But just back, I want to say, I'm from a rural area, and my family was the outsiders. We're, not necessarily, we're not Republican, but my Republican relatives have changed their ways. My husband is from North Africa. Over the course of 20 years, I've seen change. And it was not shoved down their throats. It was gradual and slowly. And when the Muslim ban happened, my husband's Muslim, I'm Muslim, like my relatives reached out, my Republican Mormon relatives in Utah reached out and said, I'm so sorry, I could never, And I think that's a relationship.
So I think you really named it for help. You have if we were really committed to anti-racism, we would see it in our audience. So I think that's really important to name. I think as one of the few people that come here, I'm a chameleon. I feel like I will insert myself into anywhere because I know I'm going to color up the space and that matters and that will hopefully allow other people to come in and feel safe and welcome in this space. But I'm curious to know, I don't know how familiar you are. We only started coming to January. So what would you recommend for the leadership of Althea as well as for the members of us as members of the population? How do we continue working towards opening up this space? This is pretty typical. So how do we keep doing it as people of color in this space, as white people, how do we keep opening up this space?
And thank you for saying that it's not just, it is a burden for a person of color to come into an all-white space. It is. I'm talking about what I understand. I'm not going to try to speak for anyone, but my kids will say, Mom, you're being such a Karen. My kids feel it. I've tried to have my kids go to Boy Scouts, and they were like, Mom, they're totally racist. And my kids are white passing kid, but they have Muslim names, and they don't, they have a different kind of upbringing. Anyway, so I actually, it's a journey. It is a journey. Honestly, this is a spiritual journey. It is, because I think it's very, okay, let's just talk about something that is the worst thing I can think about. One of the worst things. I'll say the two things. So, I had a student years ago say, hey, do you know why Black Americans are so tall? I was like, no, why? And he's like, that's because that there was a breeding program where women were they were raped in a farm and forced to give, with the father, one man who was very large, and they were forced to have children through this process, and then those children were sold. And I was like, ooh, I guess I knew that, but then just to have to hear it said to me, and to be in space with a person who knows that their lineage is from that's a different story. And let me say another thing. That meaning acknowledging that, we have to look really differently. Thomas Jefferson, how many people are freaking proud of Thomas Jefferson? But did you know that, probably that he had a 14-year-old girl who grew next to him, who was daughter of his father-in-law, who he was raping. It's hard. It is awakening. It is uncomfortable. Back to this thing. Right to comfort. We don't really have a right to comfort anymore. Once you go down this path. And so I do think that there's tons of people available. Here's where we not go. Don't get trained by a white person. A lot of times a white person and a person of color will team up so that they can kind of comfortably, handle these conversations. But it needs to be a person of color who does the training, and it needs to be paid, because all too often the labor is done for free. And and just recognize this is a journey. I've been doing this work for 20 years. My story with that family, that happened mid-career. I had a lot of years of shenanigans, and who knows how many people I harmed with my white supremacy culture. So right? That's beyond, to be honest with you, and it's taken me years and years to be to understand things again and again and again. So the proof is in the pudding. You're gonna see it when you have an open and welcoming space for all people. Then you'll see it. I do recommend that. And then I would say this is for leadership and for anyone else who's interested. And then, the board should have a person, should be changed, the leadership has to be changed. And I would also add, get speakers who are people of color. This would probably make a difference too. Those are just my ideas off the top of my head. I hope that's helpful, and thank you for asking the question. Okay, go one more question. As a final, if there's no more questions, I'll just say, so my kids will call, you guys have heard the term Karen, right? I'm sure everybody's familiar with that by now. And I know that some women, white women, are really uncomfortable with that. And I just want to say, for me, my kids will call me a Karen, and I'll say, and I'll be like, it's not, I'm not taking it as an insult. I'm taking it as that my kids are trying to communicate to me when I'm being extra. And I just need to slow down and be aware of my privilege, what I'm saying, my tone of my voice. And so I try to take cues from everyone around me about how I'm showing up in different spaces. And I'm not perfect. And actually, it's okay that I'm not perfect, because all what I was taught about perfectionism was freaking white supremacy culture anyway. So, let's take it down a notch. Slow down, learn, and I'm excited that you asked me to be here to talk about this, and I really do believe that intentions matter, but action is, that's the next thing. All right, that's it for me. Thank you guys.
and superficial relationships, so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and to turn their pain to joy. And may God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world, so that you can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice and kindness to all our children and the poor.
So, question. Does anybody here want more abundance of anything? Money, joy, love in their lives?
Yeah.
Well, there's a thing that we call the circle of life. So, if you think of abundance as being in one of those old-fashioned wells that had the hand pump, probably not a lot of us remember using one, but we've seen movies. We have grandparents who had that hand pump thing. And there's something you had to do first to make it work. What was that? Prime it. You have to put water in the pump in order to get water. So think about it. If I want more love in my life, I've got to prime my love pump. And how do I do that? By putting some love out. If I want more money, and someone once said that currency is the action of God flowing, a current. If I want more currency in my life, more abundance, I need to prime the pump. I have to participate in that circle of life, whatever it is. If I want joy, and I kind of go around, make me joyful. Probably that's not going to work. It might. Somebody might come up and tickle my ribs. But again, we have to find a way to prime the pump. And one of the things we do is to give. And by giving, we give, we can call it tithing, and we give to that which feeds us spiritually. That's different than donating to a worthy cause. That's also wonderful. But if we want to participate in this flow, we give to what feeds us. And I hope that everyone here feels that Althea feeds you at one time or another. Because if it didn't, you probably wouldn't show up on Sundays. I know it feeds me a lot. And so this is your time that you can participate in priming the Althea pump. And I guarantee that if you help prime this pump, Althea will pump out more joy, more abundance, more love, more money, more currency in your lives. So there's lots of ways to do it. We have the old-fashioned way that we participate, where we pass the basket. We also can give online. There's a QR code that you can zap if you're interested in doing that. And then we have this magical thing called the dip jar. And I will just quote Rick here, and going back, and you just stick your card down in it and keep doing that until your arm gets tired. And you will make a beautiful contribution to Althea. So, if the ushers are ready, bring the baskets down to the front. And for those of us who give in different ways, I give online automatically. I get a little email every week saying thank you for your contribution, which is kind of fun to get. And I don't have to worry about having a check or money with me. But know that we, those of us who give in different ways, our gifts are also metaphysically in these baskets that are brought forward for us to bless. And so if you will join me in our little pledge up there. The universe provides all that I need and all that I give. With great joy, I share my prosperity, planting seeds for a world which I help manifest. And so it is. Amen. Thank you. And so we've been starting a new tradition, fairly new, that we've been doing for the last few months, and we call it Prayers for the People. And so if you have a concern of your own, or a concern for a friend of yours, or if you would just like to share a joy of your own, and by sharing it, you are welcoming more joy into your life. And we invite you to do that in public if you choose, or just do it in your heart. But just know that if you share it publicly, it's out there as a vibration. Not only in this room, but every single person here hears that prayer and can also vibrate in their own self on behalf of your prayer. So we have microphones going around if someone has something they would like to share with the community so that we can support you.
I'd like prayers for my friend Bill. He was in the hospital having hip replacement surgery. They came home and caught COVID and went back to the hospital. And while he was recovering, he slipped on the floor, broke his neck, and came back in the hospital. While he's in the hospital, his mother just passed last week, so he can use a lot of our prayers. His name is Bill. And also pray for both of these, for all of us.
Thank you, Phil.
If you would like a personal private prayer after this, you can meet in the library.
Yep.
If you would like a personal private prayer after this, you can meet in the library.
And we have prayer practitioners who will be glad to sit with you and listen and offer an affirmative prayer. You can also do it online on our website. There's a place, and the newsletter every week, it also has a place that you can click and put in a request for prayer support. Anybody else that would like to share today for prayer? Louise? It's two for you, Louise.
No. So a few weeks ago, I asked y'all for prayers for students and staff participating in summer programs in summer school, and the prayers worked. Friday was the last day, and as far as I know, all the sites, there were many sites, almost 20 sites in DPS, all safe, all happy, all good. So thank you for your prayers. You help make a difference, just like teachers and students in the world. Thank you for your prayers.
Very good. And we know that it continues to grow, so that's wonderful. Thank you.
I would like some prayers for our unborn baby.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? So I would just like us all to join in a second and one more. Cayenna?
Just something I forgot to mention, I was hoping to say it, but for those girls I mentioned, those 5 girls, if you guys could just send your positive energy to those girls because they're grown up, and since I told their story, they, I know that they would benefit from, us sending them some positive energy. Thank you.
So So let's all just take that in our hearts and know that even prayers that were unspoken, that each one of us has in our heart, and just say together, and so it is. Thank you. And now for the star of the show.
Thank you.
Who's the star?
Hello, good morning. I'm Ginny, and I am part of the team that tries to bring you diverse, thought-provoking, soul-nourishing speakers like Cayenna and musicians like Michael. So keep coming. We have more good stuff. In fact, let me tell you about some of the speakers. Next week is Floria Montessori, who is our Rumi scholar, and he's going to talk to us about evil. I was working on that. Why does evil exist? That's the name of his talk. And I guarantee you, knowing Floria, it's going to take us into highs and lows and highs again. So it should be fascinating. So that's next week. And then we also have a woman named Ethel Green, who's going to be talking to us about the evolution of our energy. And when she says energy, she's talking about the energy body. And for musicians, we have our flutists coming back. How many remember when we did the audience participation percussion with our flutists? Remember that? So we have two folks playing flute, and they're going to pass out into the audience all of these percussion instruments. And it's pretty amazing when that happens. Our very own Chris Parente is going to be speaking in a few weeks as well. So that will be amazing. And Louise, I decided that I think it's a 360-degree prayer, right, message where let us know how the prayers turn out, right? If you bring something up that you'd like us to pray for, what a wonderful concept to say, oh, by the way. So, and the good, the bad, and the divine, you can tell us about all of it. So, bring your friends, bring your neighbors, bring your kids, bring yourself, your unborn kids, once they're born. So keep coming out for Sundays, because that's how we keep getting thriving and more diverse, is by having you here. So I'm also announcing some things that are coming up. One change you're going to see is that lunch has gone up $1. We had to do it. We want our lunch to break even, and we have plenty of folks that we don't charge for lunch, and we never will. And so you're helping us out by absorbing that $1 price increase. And so thank you for that. You will see it go up to $8 now. Today we have a gong bath at 12:30. If you've never been to a gong bath, this is where you come into this sacred space. We have a guy named Greg Wilkins with huge gongs, and he literally bathes you in the vibration and the sound of the gong. So that is today at 12:30. But first, you're going to join us, I hope, in the dining room. For those of you who are new, this is a freebie on us. But join us for a lovely lunch, or at least a coffee and tea. And then around 12:30, so you will have to make a choice here between gong bath and the other. Or wait, do I have that right when gong bath starts? Okay. Cayenna will be doing what she talked about, a deep dive. That's in the historic library behind this wall, and that's for anyone in a smaller group who wants to meet Cayenna and talk about, through a facilitated discussion, more of what her message was today. What's wonderful about the deep dive is that you get to meet some of the folks around you, you break into small groups, and you get to really go in depth on the spiritual side of what she was talking about. So that will be around 12:30, and so you have time for lunch, you have time for fellowship, and you have time for a deep dive. Every Thursday we have Community Connections with Kathy Humphreys. That's on Zoom right now. At some point it might pivot to in person again. But it's a small discussion group. Let me make sure I've got this on the right day. Yes, every Thursday at 11 a.m. on Zoom. So you can find out about that on our website. Let's see what else we have. That's called Community Connections. Matthew Quigley, who is our chef today, is also multi-talented. Every Sunday he has yoga right here at 2 o'clock. And I've heard that it is amazing integrated yoga for any body that is out there. Prayer partners is another thing we offer. If something touched your heart, if you have something in your personal life that you want to be guided on a little bit of affirmative prayer, get some real energy behind it, we will have prayer partners immediately following this. That is also in the historic library. Raise your hand, right? You're doing prayer partner today? Awesome. So there's your prayer partner. That is everything I can think of. Rick, have I forgotten anything? No? All right. So keep coming. We know that summertime, you have many choices on a beautiful summer day, and we appreciate when you start your Sunday with us. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to Bob.
So we're going to do a very quick closing prayer, and we're going to do it together. And then Daryl is going to lead us in a community song, and then we move on. So I would just invite you to, this is like a call and response. So if you want to get kind of in the mood and you want to raise your hands or stand up or jump around, that's fine. And if you want to sit quietly in your seat, that's fine also. So just repeat after me if you would. Life is good.
Life is good.
I feel the love.
I feel the love.
I share the love.
I share the love.
I know it goes out from me
I know it goes out from me.
and reaches around our beautiful planet
Reaches around our beautiful planet.
and comes right back into my heart.
Right back into my heart.
It's all good.
It's all good.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So please stand as you're able and join me in our closing song. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize. Know the sun will soon arise. In the darkness, lift your eyes. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. In the darkness, lift your eyes. Hold on, hold on. Building walls and spreading hate will not make this country great. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on. Are you tired of the fight? Are you weary doing right? Keep on walking in the light. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep on walking in the light. Hold on, hold on.
COVID in a 2-month period, so. Positive or negative on Monday and Tuesday.